Hi everyone, so I'm going to show you how to create this pillow pattern. I will say that I was inspired by Daisy Farm Crafts, her crochet diamond berry stitch blanket, and the link to that will be in my description below. This is a little different only because it's multicolor, it's for a pillow, and I did separate what would be considered a diamond into two triangles. I also will say that if you look at my written pattern instructions, it's for a pillow that measures 16 by 16 inch. And here, what I did also include are a few visuals that I think will be very useful to understand your stitch count. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is what the pillow will look like. Again, what I do recommend is that you first measure the pillow that you want to use, and then you add at least 2 more inches when you're creating your foundation, just so that the pillow can go inside your pillow cover. So to start with my pillow, I needed a foundation of 60 chains. And once again, since each block is of 15 chains, you have to continuously multiply that. So this was 15 times 4. And then you always add 1 extra chain to turn over. If you're following my written pattern instructions, I do have the bottom portion, which are 4 diamonds, as part 1 and the top as part 2. And I think that will be very useful. So right now what we're doing is we're starting to create part 1 again, which is as if we were following row 3. And we're going to be doing 7 single crochet stitches. And as you can, sorry about my yarn. So I have the diagram right next to you so you can see that it's 7 single crochet stitches. And then when I go to my 8th chain, I will create the first bubble. And so right now that I've created my 7 single crochet stitches, and we count them just to make sure that we have counted correctly, because we can always forget, right? I'm going to create my first bubble. So you yarn over, you pull through 2 loops, yarn over again, you pull through 2 loops. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over again, pull through 2 loops. Now I have 4, and yarn over 1 final time, pull through 2 loops. As you can tell, I have 5 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through all 5. And that is how you create the bubble stitch. And then you go to the next chain and you create your first single crochet, then your second, third, and as you can tell, we want a total of 7, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's how we created the first one. So I find it very important to start counting again as if it was 1, 2, 3, instead of I created 15 already, 16, 17, 18. That will be very helpful as you're counting to make sure that you've placed the bubbles in the correct position. So as you can tell, this is now 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet, 4, 5, 6, that one was a little tricky, and 7 single crochet. And now I can create the bubble stitch again. So I'm going to show this again in regular speed as a reminder. So I yarned over and I pulled through 2. I yarn over again and I pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. That's if I had 4. One last time, yarn over, pull through 2. And now I have 5 loops in my hook and I pull through all of them. And then I'm going to go to the chain right next to it, and then I'm going to create 1 single crochet and then 6 more for a total of 7 single crochets. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if you just continue counting like this, where you're repeating with the first 7 single crochet, then 1 bubble, then the next 7 single crochet, it will be very easy to follow along, and that way you will not confuse yourself if you place the bubble stitch where it did not belong. So now we have created the first row with the first bubble crochets. So at the end of it, don't forget that you always have to chain 1 and turn over. So for this portion, I am once again gonna go a little bit slow to show you how to do the next row. And although it is single crochet all across, it can be a little bit tricky, I think, sometimes to locate where to do the single crochet once you hit a bubble. So in this scenario, we're not really counting, but if you want it to count, because that's very important for you, I recommend you count 15 4 times. So that's a total of 60 chains. So right here, I am going to go right on top of that bubble is where you see that chain. You see that? It's right on top of that bubble. Make sure you don't get anything else. That will be, it can be a little tricky, as you can tell, even I'm struggling. But that's how you will continue your single crochets all across. So just keep that in mind. And as I mentioned before, if counting is really important for you, which I agree it is, just make sure that you either do 15 4 times when you're counting and then chain 1, or just count 60 all across. All right, so now we're gonna start on our next row. And in our next row, what we're going to do is count 6 single crochet. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're going to create the bubble stitch again. So this is similar to a double crochet method if you're used to it when you're creating this, because you're yarning over, you're pulling through 2 loops. It's just that you're not completing the double crochet. So every time that you're yarning over and pulling through 2, just make sure that you always have 5 loops on your hook, and then you pull through. You never chain on top of that, you just go right next to the chain next to it, and you do a single crochet. And then we're going to create the bubble stitch one more time. So just in case you're also still following the written pattern at any time, I will say that what you are currently following is what's labeled as row 5 in part 1. So as you notice, now we're just going to do 6 single crochets right after I finish that last bubble. So right here, I would be doing 5 more since I already did a single crochet. So that's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so to save time, you can tell that I already completed this by doing it 3 more times. At the end, I changed 1, I turned over, and then I did those single crochets all across. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the diagram because we're doing what's as if it was row 5, and that's 5 single crochets. So that was 2 already, then it's 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm gonna do a berry stitch again, as if you're looking at row 5. So my berry stitch is I yarn over, pull through 2, I yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over again, pull through 2. Once I have 5, I pull through all 5 loops. For purposes of this visual, as you can see, we are following row 5, but if you were looking at my written pattern instructions, that's as if we were doing part 1, which is considered row 7. So once again, we're going to complete that berry stitch, and it's getting a little trickier now. And then I'm gonna do a single crochet right next to it. And then I'm gonna do my last bubble. And once I finish this bubble, and I'll show you guys, you'll notice that you have finally created that upside down triangle. Oops. Okay, so when things like this happen, it's okay to pull through, but continue yarning over. And I know that I have as many loops as I need just by counting them on my hook, right? So now that I yarned over and pulled 2, I notice I have 5 loops, and I pull through them all. And now that I did that, I'm going to do 5 more single crochets. So this is going to be my first single crochet. Oops, if I can even do that. And that's what it looks like. You see, you have your upside down triangle. And now I'm going to do 4 more single crochets. Okay, so as you can tell, I already did that 3 more times, and then I did the following row, which was single crochet all across. However, this time I did not chain 1, and that's because I'm changing colors. So I'm going from color B back to color A. And color A in this scenario is white. So I'm gonna pull through to make sure that now I have that, and I'm making it very tight, but now I'm chaining 1. And now that I changed 1, I can turn it over to its right side. And this is the yarn that I'm using, if you want to take note. As I mentioned, I don't really care what that side looks like for purposes of this pattern, since we're going to be joining the front and the back cover. We're going to do a chain 1 2 times all across, and it's going to look like this. So if we were following the written pattern instructions, you'd be completing row 9 and row 10. And voila. Okay, so now we're going to start what would be considered row 11 in the written pattern instructions. So we're chaining 1 with color B. And now that we did that, we're going to now turn over our work so it's facing the right side. And with color B, we're going to create 5 single crochet stitches. So that's 1, that's 2 single crochet, 3 single crochet, 4 single crochet, and now 5 single crochet. Now we're ready to create our bubble stitch, right? So that's yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through again, and we're going to yarn over, same chain, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And now that we have those 5 loops, we pull through. Next chain, we do a single crochet, and then once again we're going to create that bubble stitch that we're very used to doing by now, and we're following what is considered row 11. So we're kind of very used to this technique because we did just finally make that same technique on row 7 right before we created the white 2 rows. So again, I'm doing a single crochet right next to it, and now I'm going to do my last bubble. And as you notice, sometimes I like pop them through because it just helps with the 3D effect. So now with my last bubble, I'm pulling through 2, I'm yarning over, inserting in the same chain, pulling through 2. This is my 3rd time doing that. Now it's my 4th time. And now I have 5 loops and I pull through. So now that I did that, I'm going to finish off with oops, I'm gonna do 5 more single crochets. So that was one. Now you can see what that's looking like. And I'm going to count 4 more single crochets. Okay, so now for the sake of time and so you don't get bored with me, I'm just gonna a little bit fast forward. So as you notice, I did complete the row. I also did the following row, which was single crochet all across, changed one, and I'm starting row 13. Don't worry, I am going to show you what row 13 looks like, but I figured maybe we could do something a little bit different. And instead of showing you what it looks like at the beginning, I would show you what it looks like in the middle of row 13. And that's so we can remember to always count by repeating from the start, right? So right here, instead of saying that's chain 16, to me, I'm single crocheting on the first, then I'm doing a second single crochet, a third single crochet, a fourth single crochet, and a fifth single crochet, and one last sixth single crochet. And now I'm ready to create my bubble stitch. And I will just do a quick comment on this. A lot of people will call this a bubble stitch. Some people will call it a berry stitch. Sometimes it's been called a puff stitch, a popcorn stitch. So I always recommend to always read the pattern instructions because it will vary all the time how many loops are needed in the hook. Okay, so I spoke too much. I did do a single crochet and now I'm doing another bubble. And this will be my last bubble. And after I complete this bubble, I'm gonna do 6 more single crochets. So let's count together. That would be 1. And then this is 2, 3, oops. Well, every time this happens, don't get frustrated. 3, 4, 5, and 6. So as you can tell, I already finished that small section and I'm going to repeat it 2 more times. Okay, so now as you can see, we're working on row 15. So I'm going to do 7 single crochet. So that's 1. This is the second single crochet, the third, the fourth single crochet, then a fifth single crochet, a sixth single crochet, and finally a 7th single crochet. And as you can guess, the next one will be our one and final bubble stitch. And right after we complete our bubble stitch, if you can read the pattern, it shows that you're going to then follow with 7 more single crochets. So make sure you count that as now 1 single crochet. Oops. And then 2 single crochet, 3, oops, 4, 5, 6, and finally 7. And I know I may feel like I'm being redundant by counting like this. I just really want to remind you why it is so important, because as you continue, you're going to continue repeating from the start. And right after that, I did a single crochet, and now I have finally completed the first 16 rows, right? So as you can see here, that first bubble was part of what was row 3, and this really is that part 1. And now when you count again for part 2, it's gonna first start with 14 single crochets, and then on the 15th is your first bubble. but then you're gonna follow the pattern as we've done as to how to count. With that being said, you have now successfully completed part 1. I'm very confident that if you're able to follow along with the free written pattern instructions that I have included in my description box, you will be able to continue crocheting the remaining rows. And that will be a series of part 1 and part 2, so you can have the triangles in different patterns and in different sections. So right now what I'm just showing you very quickly is what kind of diagrams are available so they can remind you of how the counting works, where the bubbles go, and how we alternate the colors. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you subscribe or like.